Hello and welcome back to the Throwing Strikes podcast. I'm Steven Rissotto. This is episode number 6. 6 episodes so far, and we are here joined now by Coach Matt Lisle. He is the assistant softball coach at Fresno State University, and you guys might know him by his social media feeds. He is the internet's most followed baseball and softball coach. Virtually, he's coached at every level. So, Matt, I'm excited to have you here. How you doing?
Hey, Steven. Thanks for having me on, bud. Good.
So right now there's no baseball or I guess softball happening right now, no sports happening. So the best thing we got is Tom Brady and Peyton Manning golfing with Phil Mickelson and Tiger Woods.
True.
So what have you been doing during this time? I know you have kids, probably
Yeah.
spending a lot of time with them. So what have you been doing during this quarantine period?
Yeah, I've been really pressing into family time as a coach and doing it full time for like 19 years. We don't get to spend a lot of time with our family. So I'm doing a lot of that. Still connecting with our team a lot of Zoom calls, obviously. And so that's kind of the thing I'm doing the most. Like I said, kind of those two things, a lot of family time, a lot of Zoom calls with team and planning for the summer and fall.
So you're the current assistant softball coach at Fresno State University. So what was the situation you guys were in before COVID-19? Did you guys get to play any games? Describe kind of the role that you have there.
Yeah, so we were actually 21-4. Excuse me. We were in the top 20 in the country. We were number 12 in the first RPI ranking of the year, and we were having an incredible year, one of the best in probably about 20 years. So um, that was kind of tough. I was the hitting coach, and we were actually in the Seattle airport when NCAA canceled the season, getting ready to go start conference play against Boise State. So yeah, it was just a crazy whirlwind week of everything going down, and like I said, we got about halfway through our season. We were 21-4.
So you're actually a product of Walnut Creek in the East Bay, and I know a lot of people that listen to this are from the Bay Area. But yeah, Walnut Creek to be exact. So what was that like for you growing up there, playing baseball, playing sports? How was that area? How did that area treat you?
Oh, I love the Bay Area. I love the East Bay. So that I've coached in Oregon. I've coached in Missouri, South Carolina, Maryland. I mean, I've been everywhere in the country, and I always come back here to the Bay Area. So for me, I love growing up in the Bay Area, the weather, people, everything. And so I spent majority of my life there, and I always come back. And so it's definitely home for me. And I think the Bay Area has some of the best youth and sports in the country too, with SoCal and Texas and Florida and a few others. But it's a great place.
So in terms of your personal playing career, we know you more as a coach than anything. So what was your career like on a baseball field?
I grew up. I played my first, t-ball and little league game. Was 5, 6 years old, and I played. My dad coached me all the way till I got to high school. I played high school baseball, and I was an above average high school baseball player. My dreams were playing in the pros, but I was more. My skill set was more probably a low D1, D2 kid. I ended up being a better football player in high school, and I committed to Fresno State to play football out of high school, and didn't have any real baseball offers, just kind of a lot of this and that. I had 2 football offers, Navy and Fresno State. And so I decided I was going to play football. And then college came, my college, first week of college, I had a kid, my now 23-year-old daughter, and my football career ended, and I tried to play baseball a little bit. I played at Cal State East Bay, which was called Cal State Hayward back then, and played a little bit, had some shoulder injuries, and I got into coaching at my old high school my junior year of college, and literally have been coaching for 20 years since then. So, my playing career was short, kind of not spectacular. I tried to play some independent ball for a little bit. I did some of that in the summers, but coaching was my gift, not playing.
So you went on the coach, you mentioned at a million different locations at pretty much every level along the way. But like recently, you've primarily spent your days at the college level. So what would you say is the level you like coaching most? Is it college? Is it high school, maybe the younger leagues. So what's kind of your favorite there?
I think for me, my wheelhouse is college athletics. I think the only issue that I have with the younger levels, like high school and younger, is just the amount of time and effort that goes into those levels, in the sense that, and like, high school coaches, youth coaches work a ton. But when it comes to the kids, I mean, what I love about college is, it's basically year round. It's the whole school year. We get to work the whole fall. And when you're coaching high school baseball, which I did for several years, summer and fall can be, they play on the travel ball teams, or fall, kids are playing football and basketball, rightfully so. So you don't really get to have that. Whereas in college, you get your team all together. I love the pro level, coaching at the major league level, and spring training is awesome. And the pro level is really awesome. Don't get me wrong, but the day-to-day coaching student athletes one-on-one at the college level, to me, it's just the most life-giving to me. And so I really enjoy the college level myself.
Yeah, I've had experience coaching younger kids, like 6, 7, 8, 9-year-olds, and it's like you want to teach them that, like, a balk move, but then you don't, like,
Yeah.
so it's
Yeah, the younger levels are really hard. I said I have 5 kids, and I've tried to coach it. I've helped at those levels, and it takes a lot of patience. It takes a lot of love at those levels, and it's definitely more difficult for me as someone who's more of a technical teacher. So it's those younger levels are tough.
yeah. So I read on your website that you actually found yourself homeless in 2010. So what prompted that time in your life, and how did you bounce back?
Well, during that time in my life, I was coaching high school baseball. I was trying to do lessons and camps and travel ball teams, and trying to make money that way. And it's pretty common now. I think there's probably thousands of guys that make a living that way. But back in 2010, it was a little more difficult. People didn't want to pay a lot for travel ball and the camps and lessons. So it was a little bit different 10 years ago. And it was something that I was really trying to do. And I was having some success with it. But like I said, as a father, having lots of kids, living in the Bay Area, as you know, is really expensive. I just couldn't keep up with the business of baseball, and I was working 7 days a week trying to do lessons and all this stuff, and so I just kept trying to get the ball rolling on that, and it was having a hard time. And so in that summer of 2010, just kind of caught up to me. I couldn't, like, my bills were piling up. I couldn't catch up, and so I just remember I made a deal with my landlord. Hey, take my deposit, give me one more month of rent, and I'll try to figure out. I got 30 days to figure it out, and I just couldn't. My rent was back then was like $2,000 a month at this little place, and now it's probably double that at that place. But it was a lot of money back then, especially for me at that time. And so next thing you know, you never plan on it, you don't expect it, but next thing you know, I was on friends' couches, my car. I slept in one of my friend's kitchens. He made a little bedroom in his kitchen for me with a bed sheet and an air mattress. And so there was a little time that I had to kind of sit down and try to refigure out. I knew that I wanted to coach for a living. I knew that's what God was calling me to do. I think that was, so I just I had to refigure out what that looked like, and start kind of trying to rebuild it again.
Yeah, that's the Bay Area for you. Super expensive. So fast forward, and you see yourself a little later now as a White Sox hitting strategist. You did that for a year. So what was your role there, and how did you like that?
Working with the White Sox was great. They brought me in to basically assess and evaluate every hitter at every level. We use this thing called a K-Vest with hit tracks and with a bat sensor. And so my job was to assess every hitter and then try to help develop hitting plans for all the hitters. So that was my plan. Like, hey, I would say, Steven Rissotto, this is his evaluation. This is what he needs to work on. Here's some plans with some drills, and trying to help the hitting coaches in the front office with that, and helping with the draft. We had the second or third pick in the draft that year, and so trying to help evaluate draft hitters, and so anything they needed in the sense of hitting, and trying to dig through the data to help with patterns and things like that, and saying, hey, this guy's swing rate on these pitches, we should work on this. And so I spent the year doing that, and it was a great job. I loved it. For me personally, not coaching players every day. That was hard for me, and I really, really love working with hitters and working with players and the relationship part of it. And my role with them it just wasn't that. And so I went back to coaching college. I just thought it was a better fit for me.
So I mentioned that your social media presence is gigantic, and I see your tweets all the time. I follow you on Instagram, and your posts are so relatable. So I think one of them the other day said, and somebody tweeted, "Give me a horror story with 5 words or less." And then you replied and said something like, "The season has been canceled." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's so relatable." So explain how you use social media as a tool to, kind of get your points across.
So I started out in social media like 2013. I thought, I decided that my strategy was going to be just to share things that I think were going to help people, help people with the demographics that I am. So like, players, coaches, parents, dads, and I thought, hey, if I can share information along my journey and my experience of those areas and try to help people, that's what I'm going to try to do, and just be consistent with it. And so that's kind of my only strategy. Like, hey, try to, like you said, try to share things that are relatable to people like you and I, people who love the game, love and stuff like that. And so for me, that was my strategy all along, and still is. That if I find a video or a quote or something that I think is really relatable to me, I think a lot of people think that people share things on social media to like talk about other people. 90% of the stuff that I share is for me. It's like, it's for me. It's stuff that I relate to, and I know that a lot of other people relate to as well. So, social media, I got really lucky that it just blew up and that way that has come. But for me, I was just really consistently trying to share things that would help coaches and parents and players.
So a lot of your tweets have to do with attitude and how much that matters on a baseball field or a softball field. How much of your teachings at some of maybe the younger levels, the college levels, is based on attitude?
I mean, all of it really. I think that what I've learned in my 20 years of coaching is that skill set is really important. Like, you've got to be a good player. You can't have the bad news bears out there and win. So you got to have some skill set, and that's really important. But to me, the separator between great teams and good teams are really this attitude and effort and how you approach the game, how you approach life. And sports is just a vehicle for teaching life lessons. And so all of us who get done with our playing days, some of us at 12 years old, some at 22, and some get to play till they're 40, all the things that we learn in team sports and the things that we learn playing the game, they teach us about life. And so all the things that I've learned as a player, I've used them as a coach, I use them as a parent. And so I think the attitude and understanding that aspect of the games is just really important.
Or if you're Julio Franco, you're in your 60s and you're still trying to play. So to piggyback
True.
off attitude for a second, players are always curious. I hear this all the time with my personal teammates about what coaches exactly look for. And for me personally, the best piece of advice I think I've ever gotten was, anyone could be watching you at any time. Like, I always thought the absolute gamers that I've played with or played against were the guys that, would strike out to end the inning and then be the first ones out at their position. So what's your philosophy on maybe what coaches look for in terms of work ethic, et cetera?
Yeah, so I'll tell you a story. When I played college summer ball for a couple of years, and we had a ton of guys drafted off of our summer ball teams. And I remember talking to a scout that back then, that was almost 20 something years ago, that told me that there were times that he got out of his car, saw a guy that having just a terrible approach to his warm up and attitude and all stuff, and before he even saw him pitch, left, and the guy was a guy who was going to get drafted. And so for me, I think at this stage in 2020 that the way the game is, I just think that attitude, effort, those are the kind of the bare minimum. I think they're really important. I think they but if you don't have those things, I think it's really hard to even pay attention to that person, or to scratch them off the list. And so for me, honestly, especially at the higher levels, like coaching Division I, I've coached Division I baseball, Division I softball, both in the SEC, Pac-12. is skill set trumps everything. If you're hitting home runs, or you're a pitcher that throws 95, you're standing out. So honestly, I like I said, I think players 100% need to spend a lot of time having good attitude, good effort. But if you're going to showcases and you're trying to get noticed just by attitude and effort, there's always a place for you, as long as you're okay with playing at a lower level or Division II or NAIA, and which is totally fine. There's a place for everybody. That's fine. But if you have the expectation, like, hey, I want to play at the high level and all these things, and I'm just going to do that with hustle, and it's just a very small percentage of people that have the ability to do that. And so you have to work on your skill set. You got to get better. You got to get stronger. And so those are the things that honestly just really stand out. If you power arms and power bats are going to stand out, and if you can have a good attitude and effort with that, you can really stand out.
So a lot of the fun aspect in baseball that I've noticed kind of disappears as you get older, and I've seen it, and I'm sure you have too in some cases. So how do you remind the kids and keep them motivated to have fun while competing at the same time?
I think it's just a matter of having fun in the process of it. I mean, if you have fun practices and coaches that are really positive and have a lot of energy, I think it's really easy. And I think that, at Fresno, if you ever watch me coach at any level, at Fresno State, if you ever watch a game, we're really loose. We joke around a lot. We have a lot of fun because at the end of the day, it is just a game. And so, if you take it too seriously, too competitive, and it's all about winning, you don't enjoy the process as much. And, you might win a few more championships because of this weird style, but, I want to enjoy it as well. And so for me, I think that coaches can find the happy balance of demanding and wanting to win, and at the same time be really fun. You don't have to be one or the other. You don't have to be, a jerk to win or to be serious, or vice versa.
I think a lot of that has to do with parents too. I mean, one of the messages that, you mentioned that a lot of your social media posts have to do with parents, and how much of an impact have you seen from parents in terms of putting pressure on their kids, and because it gets a little ridiculous sometimes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, all of it. I would say that it's the number one reason why kids don't play high school sports, or that they fizzle out their freshman and sophomore years of high school, is that parents are crazy. And so, I think that, I think there are a lot of great parents out there that do a really good job of supporting their kids and making the experience really good. And I think you just have a lot of parents that, again, they want what's best for their kid, but they don't know how to do it the right way. They push them too hard instead of finding ways to support them. And so, it's a difficult time right now in youth sports, in the sense of parents and what they are doing and living through their kids and a lot of other things. And so, but the parents who are doing a really good job of, teaching the life lessons with it and supporting them and finding ways to spark the, love of the game without, forcing it down their throats. I think there's a lot of them that are doing really well with that.
So these past 20 some odd years, we've seen the evolution of organizations such as Perfect Game, promoting showcases around the country. It's been effective. So what is your stance if, say one of your players wants to attend one of those showcases? What would you say?
I would say the showcases are great for getting noticed, especially if you have a really high tool set. But showcases are a terrible idea if you're in the middle of the pack of a showcase, unless there are lower level coaches there for sure. But if let's say there's 200 kids at a showcase, and if you were to rank all their skills, you're in the middle of the pack, and there's only Division I coaches there, or a handful of coaches, you just lit money on fire. And unless you were there for the experience and you wanted to see what it's like. But if you were trying to get noticed there, and you're in the middle of the pack or the bottom of that pack, there's no way, unless, again, like I said, there's a lot of coaches at different levels there. But it's definitely not the best use of your tool set, unless you're at the top. Like I said, if you're in the top 10% there and you're looking to get noticed and move up, and you can stand out at that showcase, like I said, power bat, power arm with speed, it's something that really stands out, then those showcases and those things are great for you. I would say that it really depends on the parents' resources. If you have unlimited resources and all the money, do it all, do all the showcases. But if you're really limited in what you have from a financial standpoint, resource standpoint, and your skill levels, like, hey, you know what, I'm not one of the best players here. I need to figure a different route for me. Maybe it's a showcase for people with higher GPAs, or maybe it's a showcase, something else. Find the showcase and the group that matches you.
So I had a lot of them, because I know a lot of people on my team, and I got one too. I got like one of those default letters from Florida State, and I was like, wait, Florida State, what? So what was I going to say? Yeah, Florida State. So a lot of those are basically scholarship, or not scholarship, ways to make money for the baseball program, as opposed to actually getting a good look at the player. So that's kind of what I've learned based on that. So moving on, so you started something called the Hitting Vault. Can you describe what that is and how you got to start that?
Yeah, so the Hitting Vault is this complete resource for hitting for all levels. Like, we've got major league players that are members of the vault. We've got 6-year-olds that are members of the vault, and their parents and coaches. And so it's a library of hitting drills. It's practice plans. It's just a huge library of hitting in general. Like, how to teach hitting, philosophy on hitting, how to develop hitting plans. And so everything you want to know about hitting, if you're a coach or a parent, how to help your kids, that's what the vault is. And we're just continually building, more drills and more resources in that. So, it's a great tool for a travel ball coach, high school coach, or a parent who's like, hey man, I want to help my kids get a lot better at hitting. Here it is. And I think there's just so much out there. There's so many resources and different hitting gurus out there. I think people just get confused, and they go to YouTube and Twitter, and they try to find all these drills to try to help them. And so the Hitting Vault is a way to kind of say, hey, this is all great information, all in the same place. And so that was the point of it, is to help parents and coaches to get better at teaching hitting and becoming a better hitter.
So I was watching one of your videos while researching you, and and you mentioned something that kind of stuck with me, and it was, you can never master hitting. So can you expand more kind of on that message?
Yeah, I just think, regardless of who it is, Mike Trout, Barry Bonds, I think that hitting, you can never be perfect. You're never going to be perfect every time. It's the same thing in life. I mean, it's the same thing. Like, we're not going to ever be, I'm maxed out on my IQ or my knowledge. I'm just going to stop learning. For me, and for hitters, the game itself, that's part of the fun of the game of baseball and softball, is like, we're constantly learning, constantly trying to find ways to get better, how to beat our opponents. And so hitting, you can never master hitting to a tee and have the perfect swing that's going to, match every pitcher. And at the same time, pitchers are trying to get better, and we're always having to make changes. And so it's an evolving game, and that's part of the frustration and a lot of part of the fun.
So you look around baseball today and you see three things happening at the plate: walks, strikeouts, and home runs. Launch angle has become an obsession with a lot of these baseball players today. And a lot of that has to do with approach. I know, me personally, I see a lot of 3-1 and 2-1 fastball swings. They're being used pretty much all the time now. There's a lack of kind of 2-strike approach now that maybe we would have seen 20 years ago. So give me your thoughts on that. And because I know a lot of that is mental, and, on a 3-2 pitch, trying to hit the home run. So what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I really think it depends on your level. I mean, I in the high school level, baseball, for example, it depends. If you've got fields that are 320 down the line and 350 to 400 in center field, like, that's not going to play very often, that type of, unless you are an athlete that can do that. And so, what I tell even our college players is this: if your left field fence is 320 and you can routinely hit the ball in the air 330 to 340, let's do that. But if you routinely hit the ball 315, you just led the country in flyouts. And so you've got to really know your swing. You've got to know your tools. If you're a 5'7", 140-pound second baseman, like, trying to live the launch angle life and get the ball in the air probably isn't great. But at the same time, like, the launch angle of a line drive through the hole over shortstop's head is like 10 degrees. So we can still train at the 10-degree launch angle, and we can talk about that if that's something that the hitter wants to talk about. I have no problem with that. I like the term launch angle. I like data, and I think you can use it to teach. I just think that every player is different in the sense of what their tools are. On the major league level, every single one of those guys can hit a home run. So I've worked with Daniel Descalso for a few years. He's like 5'9", 175, and can hit home runs, no problem. And there's guys so everybody at that level, same thing with college softball. At college softball, the fences are 200 feet, 220 in center field, and every one of the players on our team can hit a home run every single day, all day long. And so for us, we can train much differently than a high school. If I'm a high school baseball coach, we can use launch angle as a tool. We can talk about it, we can measure it, and we can talk about launch angle. But I'll tell you, that launch angle training that we talk about at the high school level with high school team is so much different than a college softball team or a major league baseball team. So I just think it's relative to the individual and the team, and you just got to be really smart when doing that. It's not a one size fits all term.
Mm-hmm. And especially when you get to the higher levels, you see more pitchers that have better control. Yep. And they have a better knowledge of the strike zone. Their breaking stuff's better.
Yep. And I think every coach has to find what's, for us, my hitting philosophy is do damage, and my hitting philosophy is OPS, on base percentage, slugging percentage. So for us, like, we're trying to get more walks, we're trying to hit more home runs, and so for our team, and it's everybody at every level is different. At our team, we were in top 5 in the country in walks this year, and we led the country in triples by a long shot, and we had, and so for us, that's and doing damage, walks and home runs and triples, extra base hits, they do produce the most runs. So I'm okay with that. I think the game of baseball, I know it's probably boring for a lot of people, walks, strikeouts, and home runs, but there is some give and take. Hey, I'm willing to give up a little bit of strikeouts for a little bit more power. You just can't give up a lot. And I think if you're a baseball follower, if you follow Joey Gallo at all, you've seen the progression of him as a hitter. He was an all or nothing guy that tons of strikeouts and home runs, and now he's found a way to kind of lower his attack angle. He's not swinging up as much, and so he's in that good sweet spot of like, hey, not striking out as much, and getting some rewards from that. So I think, again, everybody's kind of different in that sense.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I got one more thing for you before we go. Do you teach guess hitting? Because I knew. Are your players taught, or let me rephrase that question. Do you teach guess hitting, or are your players taught to sit on maybe one particular pitch and one particular count, or does it kind of vary by individual? What do they like to do?
It varies by individuals. We don't really allow any guessing. So it's like, what are the pitcher's best 2 pitches, best 3 pitches, if that, and we sit more on location and speed. And so all of our hitters at our level, like, they know their hot zones and cold zones. So we can talk about that all day long. So if your cold zone is low and outside, we're not swinging at that pitch. I mean, and so we're looking for red zone early, and we'll expand that red zone later in the count with 2 strikes. But we're always sitting fast, adjusting slow, and from a guessing standpoint, there's not a lot of guessing. It's like, hey, here's the 2 pitches we're sitting on, and depending on the pitcher, at the college softball level and some other levels, you may have a pitcher who throws a lot of changeups. We've faced Michigan through 47% changeups.
Wow.
So we'll have hitters that sit on changeup or sit on certain pitches if the percentages are high. But in baseball, so if the pitcher throws 80% fastballs, we're going to sit 80% fastballs and adjust to off speed. And but I have hitters that say, hey, I want to sit on this pitch and this count. And we kind of talk about it, and okay, that's fine. Sit on that pitch, and we'll take it without in certain counts for sure. But we always have a plan on that.
Real quick before we go, do you guys get a full report on some of the college softball arms that you face? What kind of knowledge do you have on them before coming?
Yeah, we have a lot of charts. There's a lot of chart data. We know not what pitches they throw, but we know their strike percentages and where they're hit, what fields. And then I spend 10 to 20 hours a week watching videos of those pitchers and creating my own reports off of that percentage of pitches they throw and tracking and charting it. So we spend a good portion of, once the season starts, we spend probably half of our week scouting opponents that way.
All right, Matt, Coach Lisle, it was really fun getting the chance to pick your brain. I really appreciate you taking the time to come on.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate it.
So, where could our viewers and listeners follow you at?
So,
Put in your plugs.
yeah, my username on everything from YouTube to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram is all at Coach Lisle. And if you Google Coach Lisle, you'll find me too. TheHittingVault.com and CoachLisle.com are the places you can find me. And starting on Monday, June 1st at 7 a.m. Pacific time, I'm going to host a daily YouTube show live 7 a.m. starting on Monday. So you can find me there, and we'll talk about sports and coaching and parenting, a lot of stuff we talked about today, starting every day on Monday, June 1st.
Awesome. We'll be sure to check in, and everybody here, you could follow the podcast on Twitter at Strikes Podcast and on Instagram at Throwing Strikes Podcast. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching, and everybody have a great day.
Thanks, Steven.